Fall asleep in ancient Rome during a quiet night. Part 1. Arriving in Rome tonight. You're somewhere very different. Not in your room. Not in whatever city or town or quiet suburb you've come from. Not surrounded by the particular sounds your home makes at night, the hum of the refrigerator, the distant sound of traffic, the occasional creak of the building settling into itself. You're somewhere else entirely. You're standing on a stone street in ancient Rome, and it is very, very late. Take a moment with that. Don't rush past it. Let it land. Ancient Rome, the real one. Not a museum recreation, not a film set, not a page in a history book. The actual city, warm and breathing and enormous, stretching out around you in every direction. The city that will one day be called the Eternal City. Not yet knowing that's what people will call it, just existing, just being itself, just doing what cities do at this hour of the night. Resting. The street beneath your feet is paved with flat stones, fitted together so precisely that after centuries of carts and boots and sandals and bare feet, they still sit nearly level. You can feel the slight irregularities under your own feet, the places where two stones meet at a small angle. The subtle dip where the center of the road is built slightly lower to channel rain toward the gutters at the edges. Roman engineers thought of everything. They always thought of everything. The air is warm, not hot. The heat of the day has softened into something gentler, a warmth that feels like a kind of permission rather than a demand. It sits on your skin without pressing. It moves occasionally when a small breeze finds its way down the narrow street, and when it does, it carries smells with it. Olive oil, baked bread from somewhere, the faint green smell of the gardens that exist behind some of these walls, stone that has been warm all day and is slowly giving that warmth back to the night dot. It's the kind of air that makes you breathe more deeply without meaning to. Go ahead and do that now. Breathe in, slowly. Feel the warmth of it, the slight richness of it, the way it seems to carry the whole day's heat compressed into something you can just barely taste, and out. Let it go, all of it. The day has been long. Rome's days are always long, from before sunrise, when the bakers are already at their ovens and the water carriers are already making their first trips from their fountains, through the full blazing chaos of the forum in the morning, through the hot, slow middle of the afternoon when even the most energetic people in the most energetic city in the world find somewhere shady to sit for an hour. Through the long evening hours of dinner and wine and conversation, Rome's day fills every available moment with sound and movement and need and desire. But that day is over now. What remains is this. The night, the quiet, the stones beneath your feet and the stars above your head, and the particular kind of peace that only very large cities can produce when they finally let themselves go to sleep. You begin to walk. There is nowhere you need to be. This is not a sentence you get to say very often in ancient Rome. This city does not encourage idleness, does not particularly approve of stillness, runs on ambition and commerce and the endless churning machinery of empire. But right now, at this hour, on this quiet street with its guttering oil lamps and its sleeping houses and its cats slipping silently from shadow to shadow, there is genuinely nowhere you need to be. You are just walking, just existing, just being a body moving slowly through a warm night in the most powerful city on earth. Let your shoulders drop. Let your hands open, fingers loose at your sides. Let the pace of your walking match the pace of the city right now, slow, unhurried, finding its own rhythm the way a stream finds its way around stones. Part 2. The streets themselves. The streets of Rome at night are a different world from the streets of Rome by day. During the day, they are almost impossibly crowded. The law actually forbids wheeled vehicles from entering the city during daylight hours, which means that all the carts and wagons that Rome depends on, the ones carrying grain from the docks, building materials for the endless construction projects, amphorae of wine from the countryside, timber, marble, everything a city needs, all of them wait until after dark to make their deliveries. On an ordinary night, the streets of Rome are noisy in a different way from the day. The grinding of wooden wheels on stone, the shouts of drivers, the sound of goods being unloaded in the dark. But it is very late now. Even the carts have done their work and gone. Even the delivery men have found their way home, or to the nearest tavern, or to whatever corner of whatever insula they sleep in. What remains is quiet. The streets are narrow here, away from the main thoroughfares. The buildings on either side rise 2, 3, 4 stories. These are the insulae, the great apartment blocks that house most of Rome's enormous population. Hundreds of thousands of people live in this city, stacked on top of each other in a way that no one has ever really managed before. A vertical city within a horizontal city. Families in small rooms on the upper floors, businesses on the ground floor. Everything pressed together by the sheer pressure of so many people needing so much space. Right now, all those people are asleep. Here and there, a lamp burns in an upper window, someone still awake, reading perhaps, or feeding a child, or lying awake with whatever it is that keeps them awake. These small lights make the windows look warm and private, like thoughts that haven't been spoken yet. You pass beneath them without stopping. The walls on either side of you are plastered and painted. Though at night you can't see the colors properly, just the shapes of letters where someone has painted an announcement, the outline of an image above a tavern door, the occasional scrawl that someone scratched into the plaster with a nail or a coin. Romans write on their walls constantly. They write advertisements, insults, declarations of love, political endorsements, crude jokes, the names of gladiators. Walking through Rome in the daytime is like reading a newspaper that hasn't been organized yet. A city-wide record of everything everyone wanted to say badly enough to say it permanently. At night though, the words just look like shadows. The wall is just a wall. The street is just a street. All lamps hang at intervals, fixed to iron brackets driven into the stone. Their flames are small, just wicks floating in shallow pools of oil. Really, the most basic technology of light. The kind of lamp that humans have been using in one form or another for tens of thousands of years. They don't illuminate very much. They make small circles of amber warmth in the dark, and between the circles the shadows run deep and comfortable. You walk through light, then shadow, then light again. The rhythm of it is soothing. Light, shadow, like breathing, like a heartbeat, like the way the night itself seems to pulse very gently when you're paying attention to it. A cat crosses the street ahead of you. It moves with the particular liquid confidence of cats in cities that have always had cats. Rome has always had cats. They've been here almost as long as the city itself. They earn their keep by keeping the grain stores clear of rats, and they carry themselves with the quiet authority of creatures who know their own value. This one pauses in the middle of the street, turns to look at you with yellow eyes that catch the nearest lamp flame and hold it for a moment, then continues on its way without apparent hurry or concern. You watch it go. It disappears into a gap between two buildings, back into whatever territory it considers its own. You continue walking. The street curves gently here, following the line of some much older boundary that the city grew around rather than through. Rome is full of these curves and angles that don't quite make sense until you understand. They're the ghosts of things that used to be their old property lines. Old walls, old watercourses that have long since been channeled underground. The city is layered, built over and over itself, so that walking through it is a little like reading a very long sentence that's been revised so many times that some of the original meaning is still there if you know where to look. You don't need to look for anything tonight. You're just walking, just moving through the warm, quiet, lamplit dark. Part 3. The fountain. You hear it before you see it. Water, moving water. The continuous low voice of it somewhere around the next curve in the street. You follow the sound, walking a little more slowly now, letting your ears lead you. The street opens slightly, and there it is. A public fountain set into a niche in the wall. It's a modest one, not one of the grand, elaborate fountains that stand in the larger piazzas, but a simple neighborhood fountain. A carved stone basin, about waist height, with a single pipe rising from the center. Water flowing continuously from a small lion's head spout. The overflow drains through channels cut into the stone, finding its way down through the street's sloped surface toward whatever underground channel carries it away. The sound of it is extraordinary in the silence. Not loud, it's a small flow, maybe the width of two fingers pressed together, water curving in a thin continuous arc from the spout into the basin. But in the quiet of this hour, in this narrow street with its sleeping walls on either side, the sound fills everything. It's the only thing you can hear. It makes the silence more itself somehow. The way a single candle makes a dark room more aware of its own darkness. Romans love their fountains. They love them practically clean running water. The great gift of the aqueducts, available to everyone, free to use, day or night, and they love them in a way that's harder to name. The way people love things that represent something larger than themselves. Water in a dry climate. Water that comes from distant hills. Water that flows through miles of stone channels and arrives here. In this neighborhood fountain, still clean, still cold, still flowing, it means something. It is the empire made visible. It is what it means to live inside the greatest engineering project in human history. You step closer, you put your hand into the basin. The water is cool, cold, actually fed from sources that never see direct sunlight, arriving here at roughly the temperature of deep stone, which is to say the temperature of the Earth's own quiet interior. It feels clean in a way that water doesn't always feel clean. It feels like it hasn't been compromised. You cup some in your palm and look at it for a moment. In the lamplight, it catches orange and gold, a small bowl of reflected fire that spills between your fingers and falls back into the basin with a sound that is gone before you can quite register it. You let the rest go. Watch it drain away. You stay there for a while, just listening to the fountain, just standing in the small circle of lamplight, with the sound of moving water around you and the city, sleeping on all sides. This is one of the things about Rome that is hardest to explain to someone who has never been here at this hour. The city at night is not less than the city by day. It is different. It has its own weight and texture and meaning. During the day, Rome is about power and commerce and the business of running the world. At night, it is about something else. At night, Rome is just people sleeping inside walls, inside a city, inside a night sky. And the fountains run, and the cats move through the shadows, and the lamps burn down toward morning, and the whole vast, complicated, ambitious, murderous, beautiful project of human civilization pauses just briefly and breathes. You are inside that breath, feel it, the pause in the middle of the world. Your own breathing has found the fountain's rhythm, or maybe the fountain has found yours, slow and even. In and out, the water doesn't stop, the breath doesn't stop, the city doesn't stop even in its sleep. You could stay here a long time. Part 4, home. You walk a little further and come to a door. It's wooden, set into a stone archway, fitted with an iron handle that has been touched by so many hands over the years that the metal has a particular smoothness in the center that seems almost soft. The door is slightly ajar, not open enough to seem like an invitation exactly, but open enough to suggest that whoever lives here is not worried about what the night might bring in. You push it gently and step inside. The house is a domus, a private home rather than an apartment, which means someone of some means lives here, though not enormous means. This is a comfortable house, a house that has been lived in for a long time and shows it in the good way. The wear on the threshold where feet have crossed it 10,000 times, the oil stains near the lamps, the faint marks on the walls where furniture is usually placed. The first room is small, a kind of entrance passage, and then it opens up into the atrium, the central room that every Roman house of any size is built around. It's open to the sky above. There's a rectangular opening in the ceiling, the compluvium, and directly below it a shallow rectangular pool in the floor, the impluvium, designed to catch rainwater and channel it to a cistern below. Tonight, the pool is still. The moonlight falls through the opening in the ceiling and lands on the water below with a precision that feels almost staged, as if someone arranged the moon for exactly this effect. The room smells of olive oil and clay and something green. There are plants in clay pots arranged along the walls, herbs mostly, some flowers. The marble floor is cool under your feet. The mosaic in the center of the impluvium, a stylized fish, rendered in tiny fragments of colored stone, seems to move slightly in the shifting moonlight, as if it might swim away. The house is very quiet. Dot in one corner, a small lamp burns. Oil in a shallow clay dish, a wick of twisted fibber, a flame the size of a thumbnail casting a circle of amber light about as wide as your outstretched arms. It makes everything within its reach warm and golden. Everything beyond it is cool and shadow. On a wooden table near the lamp, the remains of someone's dinner. Bread, partly eaten. A bowl that held something soup or stew, now empty and dry. A small amphora of wine, stoppered. A cup, a knife for cutting the bread. An ordinary life laid out in its most basic materials. Whoever at this dinner has gone to bed. The house is theirs. But right now they have given it over to the night, and the night has made it peaceful. You find a low wooden bench against the wall and sit down. The bench has a cushion on it, not a thick, luxurious cushion, just a folded piece of cloth, a practical gesture toward comfort. It's enough. You lean back against the wall. The stone is cool. Not cold, just cool. The way stone gets at night when it has given up its heat but not its mass. Still solid and substantial and somehow reassuring. You feel the whole wall behind you. The weight of it, the depth of it. This wall has been here a long time. It will be here a long time after tonight. You are sitting against something ancient and permanent, and there is a particular kind of rest that comes from that. A small cat appears from somewhere. Perhaps there is always a cat in Rome, appearing from somewhere, and sits near the lamp, regarding you with calm yellow eyes. Not alarmed, not particularly interested, just noting your presence and finding nothing in it worth acting on. After a moment, it puts its chin down on its paws and begins to doze. You watch its sides rise and fall. Slow, even. The breathing of an animal that is completely comfortable, completely trusting of its environment, completely unconcerned with the empire and its armies and its politics and its endless demands. The cat sleeps because it is time to sleep. That is the entire calculation outside somewhere. A door closes softly, then nothing, then the fountain again, barely audible from here, a thread of sound woven through the silence. You could eat the bread if you wanted. There is bread there, and wine, and figs in a bowl you hadn't noticed at first. Small dried figs, dark and wrinkled, and probably sweet. No one would mind. This is a generous house. You can feel it. The kind of place where there is always a little extra of everything, because the people here understand that a little extra is how you make room for the unexpected. But you're not hungry tonight. You're just comfortable. The lamp flickers once as the air shifts and then steadies again. The cat doesn't move. The moon moves very slowly across the square of sky visible through the compluvium, pulling its reflection with it across the floor of the impluvium, so that the mosaic fish seems to swim in that moving light, not quickly, not dramatically, just the barely perceptible drift of astronomical time, the turning of the earth, expressed as a few inches of pale light moving across old stone. You could watch this for hours. Part 5. The library. Through a doorway of the atrium, there is a small room lined with shelves. Books, though not books in the sense you might mean these are scrolls. Papyrus or vellum rolled around wooden cores, stored in cylindrical clay containers, or just lying in stacks. There are perhaps 100 of them. A modest library for a modest house, but a library nonetheless. Whoever lives here values reading. Whoever lives here takes seriously the idea that wisdom can be preserved in written marks on thin material. That what someone thought 300 years ago in another city is worth keeping, worth returning to. You stand in the doorway and look at the scrolls in the lamplight from the atrium. Philosophy, probably. History, some poetry. Perhaps the agricultural texts that educated Romans read as a matter of duty, understanding that however sophisticated the city becomes, it is built on land and grain and the labor of people who work with their hands. Perhaps something else entirely, a collection of letters, a record of family history. Something personal that means nothing to anyone outside this house, but everything to the people inside it. You don't take any of them down. You just look. There is something about a library, even a small one, that produces a particular kind of stillness. All those thoughts contained, all those minds preserved. Cicero made a speech in this room, in the sense that the scroll containing a speech is here and could be unrolled at any moment. Homer sang on the plains of Troy, in the sense that the scroll on the third shelf contains the Iliad and could be read aloud right now in a voice that has crossed 1,000 years and an entire sea to reach this quiet room in this quiet house, in this quiet city. Time is strange in libraries. You feel it now, the way the room exists, slightly outside the ordinary flow of things. The lamp that's barely visible from the doorway, the scrolls in their containers, the cool air that always seems a few degrees lower in rooms full of books. It adds up to something that doesn't quite have a name. It feels like rest, like permission, like the deep, sustaining knowledge that certain things persist. You step back into the atrium. The cat hasn't moved. The moon has moved its own small amount. You sit back down on the bench and close your eyes. Part 6. WHAT. The Empire sounds like from here. Think for a moment about how far the silence extends right now, while you sit in this quiet courtyard with your back against a warm stone wall. The Roman Empire stretches in every direction for distances that are almost impossible to hold in your mind all at once. To the north and west, beyond the Alps and across an enormous sea, Britain, cold, perpetually damp, at the very edge of what Rome considers worth governing. Soldiers stand in watchtowers on a great wall built across the island's narrowest point, watching the northern dark for movement. Their fires burn against a wet wind. They are very far from home. They are thinking, probably, about the warmth they left behind when they were posted here, and about the warmth they'll return to eventually, and about whatever specific warmth the person, the place, a particular food they miss most personally. They do not know about this courtyard, to the south, North Africa, which feeds Rome hundreds of thousands of tons of grain every year, loaded onto ships at the great harbors, crossed over the blue impossibility of the Mediterranean, unloaded at Hastir and hauled up the river to the city. Without North Africa, Rome doesn't eat. The ships that carry the grain are moving right now, some of them navigating by stars not so different from the ones visible through the compluvium above you. To the east, Asia, Judea, Syria, the great cities of the Levant, the edge of Mesopotamia where empires older than Rome still leave their marks in the earth, trade caravans, soldiers, administrators, the infinite complicated human business of governing a territory that stretches from one sea to another and is inhabited by people who have their own languages, their own gods, their own sense of who they are and how the world should be organized. All of it, right now, is happening or sleeping or moving or resting, and none of it knows about this courtyard, and none of it needs to. And the courtyard is not affected by any of it. This is the strange gift of this particular hour. The empire exists. It is real, it is enormous and consequential and will shape the next 1,000 years of human history, and it is completely irrelevant to the immediate experience of sitting against a cold wall listening to a cat breathe. Power is like that. It fills every available space during the day, makes itself known and felt and referred to. And then night comes, and the body insists on lying down, and the eyes insist on closing, and all the power in the world cannot make one human body stay awake when it genuinely needs to sleep. Even the emperor is asleep right now, somewhere in the vast complex of the Palatine Hill, in rooms that are certainly more elaborate than this one and probably less peaceful. The most powerful man in the known world is doing exactly what you are doing, resting, breathing, letting the night do what the night does. That levels something. That makes everything briefly equal. You take a slow breath and let the empire be somewhere else entirely. Part 7. The Forum at Night. You leave the house eventually, or perhaps you just find yourself outside it. The way dreams sometimes move you from place to place without the transitional steps. You're walking again, and the streets are familiar now, and your feet carry you toward the Forum Romanum without any particular decision being made. The Forum. There is no place in the ancient world quite like it. During the day, it is everything at once. A marketplace and a law court and a public square, and a political arena and a religious precinct, all compressed into a space that isn't, actually, very large, smaller than you might expect, given how much history it contains. Every significant event in Rome's public life happens here or near here. Speeches, trials, triumphs, elections, the public display of power in all its forms. At night. It is empty. You walk in from the end nearest the Capitoline Hill and stop. Before you, lit by the moon and by the small lamps that burn at the entrances to the temples, the Forum opens up. The sacred way, the Via Sacra, runs through the center of it, the road that triumphant generals led their processions along, their soldiers and their prisoners and their carts loaded with the spoils of conquered lands. Tonight the road is empty. The great paving stones are silver in the moonlight. The columns of the temples rise against the sky. They are larger than you remember them from the street, now that you are standing in the open space and can see them properly. White marble in moonlight takes on a quality that's almost luminous, as if the stone itself is giving off a very quiet light. The columns cast shadows that lie precisely across the pavement, long and dark and absolutely still. Statues stand at intervals, generals and statesmen and gods, rendered in stone and bronze, looking out over an empty space where, a few hours ago, they were looking out over thousands of people. Now their gaze falls on nothing, which is to say on everything on the stones, and the shadows and the moonlight, and the small sounds that the city makes in its sleep. You walk slowly down the Via Sacra, your footsteps, echo of the colonnades on either side, returning to you from slightly different distances, so that each step arrives back as a small conversation between the original sound and its reflections. Right foot, left foot, right foot, left foot. An argument that keeps agreeing with itself. You pass the Temple of Vesta, where the sacred flame is tended by the Vestal Virgins, the women whose responsibility it is to keep the fire burning that represents the hearth of the Roman state. The fire is burning now. You can see the glow from the open doorway, warm and orange against the cool blue-white of the moonlight. It will be burning tomorrow and the day after and the day after that. It has been burning, essentially without interruption, for centuries. There are women awake in there right now, tending it, because the fire requires attention even at this hour. Most of what Rome depends on. Someone is awake and tending. You pause in front of the rostra, the great raised platform from which orators address the crowd. The prows of captured ships are mounted on its face rostra. from the Latin word for the prow of a ship, trophies of naval victories, a reminder that Rome's power extends to the sea. Tonight, the platform is empty. No voice, no gesture, no eloquent argument or passionate denunciation. Just stone and silence and the shadows of captured ships' prows against the night. You sit on the steps of one of the temples and look at the forum. You try to imagine all the things that have happened here, and will happen here, and are not happening here right now. The weight of it all, that history, all that argument and ambition and grief and triumph should perhaps feel heavy. But it doesn't. It just feels like time. It just feels like the particular quality of a place that has been important for a very long while and knows it, and is comfortable with it. The forum at night is more honest than the forum during the day. During the day, it performs itself. At night, it just is. You sit there for a while, letting your eyes move slowly from column to column, from shadow to moonlit stone, from the dark bulk of the Capitoline Hill at one end to the open space at the other, where the road continues out of the forum, and toward the rest of the city. Everything is very still. Your breathing is very slow. You feel as if you could sit here for hours. Perhaps you do. Part 8. The Palatine Hill. The Palatine Hill rises above the forum on the south side, and it is from here that Rome takes its name, or so some people say. Palatium, palace, from the hill where Rome's greatest palaces have always stood, from Romulus's legendary hut on the summit to the vast complex of imperial residences that spreads across the hill today. Like a second city built on top of the first, you don't go up there. The imperial complex is guarded, and more importantly, it is not your kind of place tonight. Tonight is for the quiet streets and the modest houses and the sound of water in the dark. Not for the architecture of power, but you look up at it. The hill is a dark mass against the stars, and here and there a light burns in a window or at a gate, and the general outline of the building complex is just barely visible as a slightly darker darkness against the night sky. It's enormous. Even from here, you can see how much of the hilltop it occupies, how the buildings have grown and been added to and extended over generations of emperors, each one leaving something behind. The whole accumulation becoming something no single architect or emperor planned. Power accumulates the way cities do, not all at once, not according to a single coherent plan, but one addition at a time, each piece logical in itself. The total arriving at something that makes sense only when you stop looking at the parts and look at the whole. You look at it for a moment, then you turn your back to it and walk the other way. Part 9. The baths. You find the baths by the smell first, a faint sulphurous warmth that drifts on the night air. The breath of heated water finding its way out through vents and cracks in the stone. The public baths, the thermae, are closed at this hour, but they are never entirely at rest. The fires that heat the water burn continuously, or nearly so, tended through the night by slaves and workers who keep the whole system running so that when the doors open in the morning, the water will be the right temperature. The steam rooms will be properly steamed. Everything will be ready for the citizens of Rome to begin their day by getting clean and getting caught up on the news. The great entrance is locked, but through a side door that has been left ajar someone has been careless. Or perhaps someone here is always careless. Or perhaps it is not carelessness at all, but simply how things work in a city where nothing is ever entirely locked away from people who know how to move. Through this door, you can see into the first room, the appetitorium, the changing room. Rows of niches in the wall where people leave their clothes and belongings. Tonight the niches are empty. The wooden benches along the walls unoccupied. The lamps are turned low, but not extinguished. The marble floor reflects them. You step inside. The air is warmer here than outside. Noticeably warmer. The heat that keeps the bathing pools at temperature seeps through the walls and floors. Through the hypercore system, the hollow spaces under the floor, and in the walls through which heated air circulates. One of those Roman engineering solutions that is so elegant it seems obvious in retrospect, and it fills the rooms with a warmth that is almost like a physical presence. A heaviness, an invitation to lie down. You walk through the appetitorium into the frigidarium, the cold room. This is the largest of the bathing halls, high vaulted, with a great cold pool in the center that by day is busy with bathers, and by night is still as glass. The ceiling above it is lost in darkness. The pool itself reflects the lamps at the edges, doubled and wavering. You kneel at the edge. The water is cold, genuinely cold, unheated, kept at the temperature of its source. You put one hand flat on the surface and feel it, the cold that presses back against your palm. The way the water moves very slightly even when you are not touching it. responding to some microcurrent of air or the barely perceptible vibration of the city above. You take your hand away. The surface heals itself. You move on into the tepidarium, the warm room. This is where most people spend most of their time in the baths. Not cold, not hot, but warm. Pleasantly, sustainably warm. The temperature of comfort. Stone benches along the walls. A lower ceiling than the frigidarium. The air is slightly damp and smells faintly of the herbs that someone has left in a small pot near the door. Their oils released by the warmth lavender, perhaps, or rosemary. You sit on one of the stone benches. The warmth is immediate and enveloping. Not oppressive, just present. The way warmth is when it's the right amount of warmth in the right kind of space. You feel it in your shoulders first, then your back, then the backs of your thighs where they rest against. The warm stone, your body relaxes in the way. Bodies relax when the temperature is exactly right and there is nothing to do and nowhere to be. The steam room, the caldarium, is through a doorway at the far end, and you can feel the increased humidity from here. The air thickening and warming as it moves toward you, but you don't go in there tonight. The tepidarium is enough. The tepidarium is more than enough. You lean back against the warm stone wall. Close your eyes. The warmth surrounds you like a conversation thought in your mind. For a moment, you hear the baths as they are during the day, the slap of wet feet on marble, the voices echoing under the high ceilings, the splash of someone entering the cold pool, laughter from somewhere, an argument about something trivial that sounds urgent, because voices carry strangely in stone rooms, oil being applied to skin, streeters scraping away the sweat and oil and dust of the day. The small business transactions that happen in bathhouses, because bathhouses are where people are relaxed and therefore more honest, or at least more willing. All of that is possible in this room. All of that will happen again in a few hours. Right now though, just warmth, just stone, just your own breathing, which has slowed to something very close to the breathing of sleep. Part 10. The insula. You find your way back to the streets. The city is in its deepest sleep now. The oil lamps are burning lower, some of them down to their last small reserves, the flames shrinking and guttering and occasionally going out altogether, leaving a particular kind of darkness in their place, a darkness that feels slightly surprised at itself, as if the lamp didn't quite believe it would go out. The insulae, the apartment blocks rise around you on all sides, their upper stories lost in shadow. From the streets they look monolithic and anonymous, just walls and windows, the external face of a collective life that you can't see from outside. But you know, from walking through Rome's days, that each of these buildings contains a whole world. On the ground floor, shops. At a burner selling hot food from a counter with holes cut in it to hold clay pots. A fuller's shop with its distinctive smell. A cloth merchant, shuttered now. A bakery, actually, where you can hear a very faint sound of movement. Someone is already awake, or still awake, beginning the preparations that need to begin before dawn for the bread to be ready when customers arrive. Up the stairs from the ground floor, narrow stairs, steep stairs, the kind that require care even in daylight, the apartments begin. Small rooms, sometimes a single room for a whole family, sometimes 2 rooms, which constitutes a relative luxury. Each floor up is slightly cheaper rent and slightly less desirable. More stairs to climb with your water and your shopping. Less security from flood, more exposure to fire, which is the constant fear in a city built largely of wood and powered by flame. But the people in those rooms right now, in the deep night, in their small spaces with their one lamp extinguished and their one small window shut against the night air, those people are sleeping. They have arranged themselves in the configuration of their family. The children tucked against the wall, the adults at the edges or between, the arrangement that protects the most vulnerable by surrounding them with warmth. The man who will be loading the baker's oven before dawn is probably awake now in a room on the 3rd floor, listening for the sounds that tell him it's time to get up. The woman who will be setting up her cloth stall in the market is asleep in the room below him, her body already resting in anticipation of a day that will start hard. Children whose names will never be recorded by history are sleeping with the absolute completeness that only children can achieve. Their breathing so slow and deep that you check on them if you could hear them. You stand in the street outside one of the insulae and look up. The building is very tall. Against the stars, it has its own silhouette, not elegant, not designed with beauty in mind, just built to house as many people as possible in the available space, but given a kind of accidental grandeur by the night and the stars behind it and the lamplight below. You think about all the lives stacked up inside, the dreams they might be having, the things they're worried about that will seem smaller in the morning, the Things they're happy about that they haven't thought about consciously, but that exist somewhere in the background of every moment. You've always had more in common with them than with the emperors on the hill. Part 11. The markets. At rest, the market district is quiet in a different way from the residential streets here. The quiet has a different texture, the quality of a space that is designed for activity and is therefore particularly aware of its own stillness when that activity is absent. The stores are closed. The awnings are rolled up or removed entirely. The tables and counters where things are sold during the day are folded or stacked or simply pushed to the walls, without the goods displayed on them, without the vendors behind them and the customers in front of them, and the noise and movement and urgency that commerce requires. The spaces look almost abstract, just arrangements of wood and stone that hint at their purpose without performing it. But the smells linger. Spices. First, the ones that came from very far away, from the east, from places most Romans will never go, but which they have nevertheless incorporated into their cooking and their medicine, and their sense of what a comfortable life smells like. Cinnamon and black pepper and the sharp sweet smell of dried herbs in bunches. Fish sauce garum, the ubiquitous condiment that flavors everything, and that is, admittedly, an acquired smell, if not an acquired taste. The dry, dusty smell of grain that has been measured out and sold in great quantities throughout the day. The ghost of fresh vegetables that have been sitting in the sun and then taken away. A dog is asleep under one of the counter tables, curled so tightly into itself that it looks more like a theory of a dog than an actual one. It's breathing slowly. You could walk past it and it wouldn't notice. You walk past it slowly, careful with your footsteps, and it doesn't notice. At the far end of the market, one store is still not entirely shut down. A cloth merchant who has left a bolt of fabric draped over the counter, as if they'll be back in a moment. The cloth is dark, maybe blue or green, hard to tell in this light. It moves very slightly in a breath of air, rippling along its length in a slow wave that travels from one end to the other and then settles. You watch it settle. The whole market seems to breathe around you. This is where the city sustains itself, where the material needs of hundreds of thousands of people are met day after day. Bread, cloth, pottery, oil, tools, leather, meat, fish, vegetables, flowers, spices, luxury goods for those who can afford them, basic goods for those who can't. All of it moves through spaces like this one, handled by human hands, exchanged in human transactions, part of the great daily project of keeping an enormous population fed and clothed and housed and supplied. Right now it's all very still. Right now a dog is sleeping and a piece of cloth is breathing, and everything that will happen tomorrow is simply potential, waiting in the darkness for the sun to activate it. You find a low wall to sit on and let the market sleep around you. Part 12. The Tiber. You smell it before you reach it. The particular smell of the great river, muddy, rich, slightly organic in a way that speaks of the vast amount of life the river carries and is carried by. Rome began here, on these banks, because of this river. The story of Rome is, at its most fundamental level, the story of a city and its river. The trade that the river made possible, the floods that the river regularly sent into the lower-lying districts, the symbolic weight that the river acquired over centuries of being the city's western boundary and eastern protection and constant companion. You come to the embankment and look out over the water. The Tiber at night is dark and moving. The current is visible in the way the moonlight moves on the surface, not still like the pool in the impluvium or the water in the baths, but always in motion, the light shifting and breaking as the surface wrinkles and flattens and wrinkles again. Somewhere upriver there must be more water than usual. The current seems stronger tonight than the norm on the river. A few boats are moored along the bank, trading vessels mostly, their hulls dark and their masts making thin vertical lines against the stars. During the day, these boats are part of the constant traffic that makes Rome's commerce possible. The grain ships from Ostia, the smaller boats that carry goods up and down the river from the countryside. Tonight, they rock very gently on the current, their mooring ropes taut and then slack and taut again in a slow rhythm. The sound of the river is different from the sound of the fountain. The fountain is a single voice, clear and consistent. The river is many voices. The main current, the small eddies near the banks, the sound of water moving against the stone embankment, the occasional slap of a small wave against a boat's hull. It's a complex sound, layered and continuous, filling a much larger space than the fountain's thread of music. You sit on the embankment and let your legs hang over the edge, feet a long way above the surface. the city behind you is a presence you can feel without turning to look at it. The warmth of it. The accumulated warmth of hundreds of, thousands of bodies and thousands of lamps and the hypercausts and the bakers' ovens and the pottery kilns and the blacksmiths' forges and all the other heat-producing activities of an enormous city, all of it radiating outward into the night, making a small climate of its own. Rome keeps itself warm. You look at the other bank. There's some buildings, some boats. The suburb known as Trastevere, where the population is different and denser and less wealthy, where many of the people who do the work that makes Rome function actually live. Right now, it's dark and quiet, just like this bank. A fish jumps somewhere in the middle of the river. You hear it rather than see it. The brief violence of a living thing in water, then the silence after it's gone. You watch the river for a long time. The city is somewhere behind you. The darkness is somewhere ahead of you. You are here, in between, on the embankment of the greatest river of the ancient world, and you are very, very still. Part 13. The gardens. The garden exists behind a high wall, and you don't know whose it is. And it doesn't matter. The gate is unlocked. These things happen. Or perhaps you're simply in the part of this night that allows for open gates and slightly ajar doors and passages that present themselves exactly when you need them. You push the gate and it swings silently, well maintained on well-oiled hinges, and you step into the garden. Private gardens in Rome are a statement of both wealth and philosophy. They require space, which is expensive in a city this crowded. They require labor to maintain gardeners who understand soil and water and the needs of particular plants. They require a belief, which not everyone in Rome shares, that some land should not produce a profit, that some space should exist for no purpose other than beauty and rest. This garden expresses all of these things. Stone paths wind between, beds where the shapes of plants are just visible in the moonlight, some tall, some low, some clipped into formal shapes and some left to find their own. There are fruit trees whose branches make patterns against the sky that are lovelier than any pattern a person could plan. There is a small pool at the garden center, still and black and reflecting the stars precisely. A mirror of the sky laid in the earth. The smell of the garden is extraordinary at night. Some flowers release their scent more fully in the dark than in the day. Aspen is one of them. And the night-blooming variety that grows along the south wall of this garden is filling the air with something so densely sweet, it seems almost visible. There are also the herbs, mint underfoot where someone has trodden on it and released its clean, clarifying smell. The deeper, dry smell of rosemary against the warm stone wall. Lavender doing what lavender always does in warm places, making the air feel somehow both thicker and easier to breathe. You walk slowly along the paths. You put your hand out as you pass a low hedge and let the leaves drag lightly against your palm. They are dry and slightly rough and slightly sticky with whatever oil it is that plants keep on their surfaces. The smell that comes with them is green and complex and alive. You come to the pool and stop. The reflection in it is cleaner than the sky itself. No haze, no distortion, just the stars reproduced exactly in still water. You could almost convince yourself that the real sky is below you, and you are looking down into infinite dark space. The stars arranged in their ancient patterns. The whole nighttime universe laid at your feet, almost. But then the water moves just slightly as you lean over it, and the stars ripple and scatter and reassemble, and you are reminded that it is just water. Beautiful and alive and cool. Nothing more and nothing less. And nothing more and nothing less is sufficient. There is a stone bench beside the pool, and you sit on it. The bench has been warmed a little by the day, and the jasmine smell comes and goes with the small movements of the air. And the stars are both above you and below you, and the garden is very quiet except for the sound of one cricket somewhere in the hedge who has not yet noticed that it is very late, or who has noticed and doesn't care. You lean forward with your elbows on your knees and look at the reflected stars. Your breathing has become very quiet. Your thoughts have become very quiet. There is something about a garden at night that makes thinking feel unnecessary, or at least optional. The garden does not ask anything of you. The garden does not need anything from you. The garden simply is, and in the garden's presence it becomes easier to simply be. The cricket pauses. The night holds still. You hold still. Part 14. The road outside the walls. The city gate stands open. This surprises you. But Rome's gates are often open even at night. The walls are more symbolic and defensive at this point in the city's history. And the constant need for goods to flow in and out of the city means that closing the gates entirely would create more problems than it would solve. Guards stand at intervals, leaning on spears, some of them genuinely alert and some of them in that useful middle state between alertness and sleep that soldiers learn in long postings, present enough to respond to something real, but restful enough to survive the night. You walk through the gate. The road that extends beyond it is one of the great roads of the Empire paved, wide, built to last not just for a century, but, as things turn out, for several millennia. The Via Appia, perhaps, or the Via Flaminia, or one of the others that extend from Rome like spokes from the hub of a wheel. Reaching out to the edges of the world Rome has claimed for itself. Walking on the road at night, outside the city walls, is different from walking through the city streets. The sky is suddenly larger. The city's walls and buildings have been creating a kind of visual boundary that you didn't fully notice until it's gone. And now, the sky expands to its full size and the stars seem further away and more numerous and more indifferent in the best possible sense. The road stretches ahead of you in the moonlight, white stone reflecting the sky. On either side of it, the countryside lies open. Fields and olive groves and occasional stands of trees, whose shapes are soft and dark against the slightly lighter dark of the sky. The smell out here is all earth and growth, and the particular nighttime smell of fields that have been warm all day. A compound smell that includes somewhere in it the promise of tomorrow morning's dew. There are monuments along the road, tombs. Mostly the Romans bury their dead outside the city walls, and the great roads are lined for miles with tombs of all sizes, from modest stones marking ordinary people to elaborate structures built for wealthy families, some of them almost small temples in their ambition. In the moonlight, they make shapes that are strange and not unfriendly architecture built for permanence, built to endure long after the people who ordered it were gone, doing exactly what it was built to do. You sit on the grass verge of the road and take off your sandals and press your feet into the earth. The grass is dry and slightly sharp and absolutely real. The earth under the grass is warm, genuinely warm, retaining the heat of a day that's been gone for hours. You press your palms flat against it and feel it, like a heartbeat almost, except that what you're feeling is not a heartbeat, but the slow thermal memory of sunlight, the ground's patient record of the day. You lie back, the full sky opens above you. You have never seen so many stars. The Milky Way crosses the sky from edge to edge, a broad pale river of light that is actually the disk of your galaxy seen it on, the accumulated light of more stars than you can count or comprehend, all of it visible because there are no electric lights for hundreds of miles in any direction, and the air is clean and the night is clear. You lie in the grass on the verge of a Roman road and look up at the galaxy, the same galaxy that people 10,000 years before you could see, lying in different grass in different fields but looking at the same sky, the same galaxy that people 10,000 years after tonight will be able to see, if they are lucky enough to be somewhere dark enough to look the same, unchanged. Whatever empires rise and fall below it, the galaxy continues. You breathe slowly, dot in and out, dot in and out. Part 15. The countryside. You walk a little further along the road and then leave it, stepping off the paved surface into the softer ground of the countryside. The olive grove that begins here is ancient. The trees have the thick, twisted trunks of trees that have been growing for a century or more, their bark pale in the moonlight, their branches reaching out in the irregular directions that trees take when they are old enough to have stopped following any particular plan and are simply following their own logic of growth. The leaves are small and silvery gray, and when the breeze moves through them, they make a sound that is one of the most soothing sounds in the world. A dry, soft whisper, leaves against leaves, the sound that olive trees have made in Mediterranean nights for all of human history. Sitting under an olive tree in a warm night with a breeze in the leaves above you is the closest thing to the sound of sleep that nature has produced. You find a place beneath one of the oldest looking trees and sit. The roots break the surface here, thick and gnarled, making natural seats and rests and shapes that seem almost intentional, as if the tree has been growing for years, specifically in anticipation of your arriving tonight and needing somewhere to rest. You lean back against the trunk. The bark is rough and dry and warm, and it presses against your back in a way that is not quite comfortable, and therefore keeps you aware, not alert. Just aware, present. The leaves above you move constantly in the small breeze. The sound they make is very close to the sound of quiet breathing. You could look up through the branches at the stars, broken and shifting through the leaves, or you could close your eyes. You close your eyes. You listen to the olive leaves, Far away, the city hums with its own deep quiet. A presence on the edge of your awareness, like a friendly thing at the edge of your vision that you don't need to look at directly. The earth beneath you is steady and solid. The tree behind you is hundreds of years old and will be here long after. Tonight, the breeze comes and goes through the leaves and makes its sound. You breathe in, out. Part 16. The return. You walk back toward the city slowly, following the road in the moonlight, passing the tombs again. Under the vast and undiminished sky, the gate appears ahead of you. The same guards in their same positions, the same quality of lamplight at the entrance. You walk through and the city takes you back immediately. The smells and sounds of it reasserting themselves. Stone and oil and distant water and the particular urban warmth that doesn't exist in the countryside. But the city is still quiet. It is late enough now that even the latest revelers have found their way home or to whatever corner they're sleeping in tonight. Even the most determined insomniacs in their third-floor rooms have finally given up and closed their eyes. The bakers are awake, but they're quiet about it. And the guards are awake, but they're quiet about it too. The city is breathing, slow and even. The collective breath of hundreds of thousands of people who are, for these few hours, all doing the same thing. You walk back through the familiar streets. The fountain is still running, of course it is. It runs all night. It runs every night. It will probably still be running when no one is left to hear it. The cat is gone from wherever it was earlier. It has its own itinerary, its own purposes, its own priorities that have nothing to do with you. You come back to the house with the wooden door. You push it open. The atrium is as you left it. The lamp has burned lower, but it hasn't gone out yet. The moonlight through the compluvium has moved further across the floor. The cat you saw earlier, or a different cat, or the same cat returned by a different route, is asleep again in its spot near the empty clay bowl. The bread and figs are on the table. You sit down on the bench. The stone wall is cool at your back. Your body is warm. You feel the weight of your own body in the way. You can only feel it when you're very tired. In the right way, not exhausted, not worn out, but simply ready. The body offering itself honestly to sleep, saying, "Here I am. We can stop now." The lamp flickers once, settles. The cat breathes. You breathe. Part 17. Descent now. Everything moves at a different pace. Not slower exactly, or slower in the way that water gets. Slower as it spreads across a flat surface. Not losing its momentum, but distributing it across a wider space, so that what was moving quickly in a narrow channel becomes a thin sheet of movement that seems almost still. Your breathing is that sheet of water now, broad and shallow and very, very slow. The lamp is the only thing in the room that moves. The flame doing its small endless dance that isn't random and isn't controlled. Just the natural behavior of fire in air. The response to imperceptible variations in the atmosphere around it. You watch it without watching it. You see it the way you see things when your eyes are not quite focused peripherally, gently. Without the active effort of looking, the city is out there. The forum is out there. Empty and moonlit. The baths are out there. Warm and still. The river is out there, moving in its dark, patient way toward the sea. The olive grove is out there, its ancient trees doing whatever ancient trees do in the night, growing so slowly it looks like stillness, putting down roots, breathing carbon dioxide out through their leaves, being trees. All of it is out there, and none of it requires anything of you right now. Your shoulders have dropped as far as they would go. Your jaw is loose. Your hands are open. The bench supports you completely. You don't need to hold yourself up. You never do. Really, structures support us constantly without us noticing. We go through our days held up by chairs and benches and beds and floors and the earth itself. And we thank none of them, because that's not how it works. But right now, you notice. You notice the bench beneath you, solid and sufficient, doing its simple job. You let it. The lamp is very small now. The cat is breathing so slowly you have to watch carefully to see it. The moon has moved to the far edge of the square of sky above the impluvium, and the reflection in the pool below has moved with it. And the mosaic fish is in shadow now. Everything is settling. Everything is finding its natural level. The way water finds its level. The way all things find their level when you stop interfering. Your thoughts are doing the same. They've been gradually losing their urgency over the course of this night, shedding their sharp edges, becoming less the specific thoughts you usually have and more just a general quality of thinking present, occasionally noticing things, but not grasping, not demanding, not building toward anything, like clouds that have been moving. all day and are now just hanging, like a conversation that has reached the point where no one needs to say anything more and everyone knows it, and the silence is not uncomfortable, but simply the most honest response to where things are. You are in Rome. It is the middle of the night. The empire is asleep. You are almost asleep. The lamp burns. The cat breathes. The water in the fountain does not stop. The stars continue their barely perceptible movement across the sky. All of it very quiet. All of it very steady. All of it asking nothing. You drift a little, not quite gone yet, still aware, in the thin, floating way that the edge of sleep allows, aware of the stone wall, aware of the warmth, aware of the lamp's small light through your closed eyelids, aware that you are in Rome, in a quiet house, in a quiet city, in the middle of a warm and ancient night, but drifting. The thoughts that come now are not thoughts exactly. They're more like the shadows of thoughts, the impressions left by thoughts. They arrive without announcing themselves and drift past without requiring a response. A column in moonlight, the sound of water, the weight of an olive branch, the stars, the same stars, the completely unchanged and permanent stars. Breathing, just breathing. The lamp, the cat, the city, somewhere. Breathing too. You breathing, going, there. Part 18. The long night. The night continues. It doesn't require anything of you for it to continue. It will continue regardless. The earth will turn at exactly the rate it has always turned. Neither faster for your impatience nor slower for your wishes. The stars will move across the sky in their ancient courses. The lamp will burn until the oil is gone, which is perhaps an hour from now. Perhaps two, you don't know, and it doesn't matter. The cat will sleep. The fountain will run. In the insula around you. The people are deep in their sleep. The baker, who has already been up for an hour, is past the exhausted phase and into the second wind phase, moving through his work with the automatic competence of someone who has done this 1,000 times and whose body knows how to do it without much help from conscious thought. The children are dreaming, their rapid moving eyes invisible under closed lids, their small faces slack with the complete surrender that children manage and adults only approach. In the forum, a night watchman is making his round, footsteps echoing the way yours echoed earlier, lamp held at arm's length to light the way ahead. He is thinking about breakfast, specifically about a particular kind of bread from a particular bakery near the Tiber that he will walk to when his shift is done. The round loaf with sesame seeds pressed into the top, and the cheese he keeps wrapped in cloth in his room, and the diluted wine that will take the edge of the cold that comes before dawn. His whole awareness has narrowed to this bread, this cheese, this modest pleasure waiting for him at the end of the night on the Palatine Hill. In a room whose walls are painted with elaborate frescoes, someone important is sleeping badly. Not every night in Rome is a restful one, but the powerful, perhaps the least restful of all the dreams that come with power, are not always the kind you choose. But that is not your concern. Your concern is nothing. Your concern has, over the course of this night, reduced itself to nothing at all. You are in a quiet house, in a warm city. The wall is cool against your back. The lamp is burning low. The air smells of olive oil and clay and faintly of jasmine from the garden somewhere down the street, carried on the same small breeze that has been moving through the city all night like a quiet visitor who asks for nothing. You breathe in. You breathe out. The cat is asleep. The city is asleep. The empire is asleep. The night holds everything gently, the way nights have always held everything. The way the darkness is not empty, but full of sleeping people and running water and lamplight and the slow turning of the earth and the endless indifferent light of very distant stars. You are part of all of it. You are in Rome. It is very late. You are very still. Let the night hold you. Let it carry you. Let the warm Roman darkness do what it has always done, what it has done for everyone who has ever slept in this city in all its long history. Let it take you gently from the world of effort and thought and wanting and needing, and carry you somewhere else, somewhere without address, somewhere without time, somewhere that is simply rest. The lamp, the cat, the stars, the fountain, running, you resting, finally resting. Part 19. The last few moments of awareness. There is a moment not long from now, or perhaps already past. You can't quite tell when the line between being awake and being asleep stops being meaningful. You're aware enough to know that you're aware, but barely. The awareness is like the lamp. It has been burning all night, giving light to the things around it, making the room real, making the cat real, making the walls and the fountain and the stars real. And now the oil is nearly gone, and the flame is very small, and the light it gives is not quite enough to see by, which means that the things it was illuminating are becoming part of the dark again. And that's fine. That's how it's supposed to work. The flame doesn't fail. It finishes. There's a difference. You have been present in Rome tonight for as long as you needed to be. You have walked the streets and heard the fountain and sat in the quiet house and rested in the bathhouse warmth and lain in the grass under the galaxy. You have let the city be what it is, enormous and human and temporary and permanent and sleeping and breathing. And you have let it do for you what it can do. Give you something to rest in, something larger than your own particular concerns, something that has been here long before you and will be here long after tonight. Indifferent in the best sense, stable in the best sense. Asking nothing. The Roman night is not asking anything of you. It never was. All it offered was itself. Warmth and stone and water and stars and the particular quality of silence that a very old city produces when it finally goes to sleep. You took it. You are taking it still. Breathe in, breathe out. The lamp goes out. The room is dark. The cat doesn't move. Somewhere, the fountain runs. The stars continue their ancient courses overhead, unseen, steady. The light of them crossing the gulf of space at exactly the same speed it has always crossed it, arriving at your eyes whether you are awake to receive it or not. Rome is asleep. You are asleep. There is no difference between the two right now. There is only the dark and the steady sound of water and the breathing, your own, slow, even, gone.